Okay. The second thing to talk about is the worst writing experiences assignment. Essentially, this assignment is developed to really get rid of some of the fears or trepidations that many might have with just being in a writing class. I know a lot of times people feel really shy about sharing their work or having others read their writing. And what I've discovered is that it's usually something that's happened in their past that has given them this feeling about writing. So thinking about the worst writing experiences, I always use my wife as an example. When she was in eighth grade, she had a paper similar to our first paper, and my wife's not a procrastinator, so she went home. She did it. Got it done way early. Had her mom proofread it. Had her grandma proofread it. She was really happy with it. Confident in it. Took it to school. And after a couple of days, the teacher began to read the papers out loud that had been turned in. All of a sudden, he starts reading hers first, and she's becomes happy. He doesn't say her name, but she knows it's her work because she wrote it. So as he's going through it, he begins to point out every mistake, every flaw in the paper, and then basically uses the paper as an example of what not to do when writing an essay. From then on, she ran out of the classroom, crying. She was upset, things like that. But from then on, for a long time, she was really afraid to have other people see her writing or read her writing because she felt that they would judge her, just like the teacher had. Um, so I offered this assignment, the worst writing experiences. I basically want you to tell me some of your worst writing experiences, so that I can kind of get rid of some of those fears that you might have with the writing in general. Usually what I do is I'll share one of my worst writing experiences with the class, and then you guys can use that as an example, kind of for yours. My worst writing experiences, I have one as a teacher and one as a student, but the worst one as a teacher, I mean, as a student, probably was when I was a senior in high school. I had a AP Lit class, and we had this assignment. It was an essay. We had to write an essay, and we had to basically, tell about something that's happened to us, significant, very similar to our first essay in this class. And for the life of me, I couldn't think of anything to write about. I had like no clue. I just couldn't. I just couldn't think of anything to write about. There was like nothing significant in my mind at that time that had happened to me. Even though I was a senior in high school and I had lived overseas for years, none of that stuff made any impression on me as far as like being significant in my life at that time. So around that time, this group called Pearl Jam was out. And they had just come out, and they had a lot of videos and things like that. But they had this video called Jeremy, and Jeremy basically tells a story of a kid who's lives basically his parents neglect him. His mother, isn't really there for him. His dad's never there for him. He spends his time alone on mountaintops drawing pictures. The kids at school bully him. One time he, strikes back at the bullies and hits the kid with a surprise left. And this was very popular at the time. Now I couldn't think of anything to write, and I'm thinking, my teacher, she's probably not, watching Pearl Jam videos. She was older. It's like 90s, early 90s. I'm like, she's not watching Pearl Jam. So I began to tell a story. I wrote my paper, and it was about a guy that I knew, a kid that I knew in school. In the Jeremy song, basically the kids are neglected. He's bullied, and at the end of the song, he comes in, he tosses the teacher an apple, and he kills himself in front of his entire class. And there's like this pink, like blood running down the screen, and everybody's like frozen, things like that. Right, so then I begin to write my story, right? And I say I had this friend. His name was Jeffrey Spoken. The chorus of Jeremy is Jeremy Spoken in class today, right? So I had this friend. His name was Jeffrey Spoken. And Jeffrey was neglected by his parents, I said. His dad was never there for him. His mom always, neglected him. Us kids used to bully him at school. One day he, struck back and, he hit me in the jaw with a surprise left hook as I was bullying him, things like that. But then I said, at the end of the story, basically Jeffrey came in and tossed the teacher an apple, just like in the video, and killed himself in front of all of us in eighth grade. And so was the significant event that I said that had happened to me. I turned the paper in. And to this day, I maintain that it was excellently written. The metaphors were crisp. The similes just so fresh. But excellently written. So I get the paper back a couple of days later, and it's like the first page, there's comments, nice simile, excellent metaphor, crisp, all these things, on the first couple pages, and then it just, there's just nothing. All of a sudden, all the words just stop, right? All the teachers, marks just like comments just end abruptly in the middle of the second page. So then I go to the end of the paper, and I look, and there's just an F, and it's just like see me after class, and that's the only comments that I have. So I go up to the teacher, after class. I'm like, hey, you said see after class. I got an F on this. And she was like, what do you think? I'm an idiot? What do you think? I don't know who Pearl Jam is? do you think I don't have two teenage daughters who watch Pearl Jam videos all day long? And I was like, yeah, I kind of did think that. All right, so she failed me. I almost failed the course. And I learned basically, yeah, even though it wasn't original work, it wasn't based on originality, so I had to do something else. My worst experience as a teacher, worst writing experience as a teacher is I've taught at Kathleen for a while. I had to teach this creative writing course. And basically, one of the assignments that we had is they had to write the first, 30 minutes of a movie or like a 30-minute pilot of a television script. Basically, in script writing, every page is equal to about 1 minute of screen time. So they basically had to write a half hour worth of screen time. So I had this one student who said it was around the time when the A floppy drives were becoming obsolete. So I had this one student who said she didn't have an A drive anymore on her computer, that she had 2 CD burners. And what I would do, generally, I would give all the students these A discs, these floppy discs, and they would save their stories on there. Then they work on them at home, and then they would bring them in class and work on them in class. But she, during class, she would be doing nothing, doing her hair, playing on the internet. And she said, I have this, my computer doesn't have, an A drive, but I'm working on it at home. Once it's done, I'll burn it to a CD. You can bring it up and print it, and it'll be great. So I'm like, okay. So every day, for like a month, she's just like sitting there doing nothing, but I'm like, okay, she's working on it, and she's just showing me, yep, I'm working on it at home. All right, so the month comes in, she brings it in on a CD, I print them up, and the way that we did the class is basically I would print up, enough copies for each student in the class, and we would just workshop them. We would read them aloud and workshop them, right? So as we're reading, I'm starting to get jealous of this student. I'm like, she's like an amazing writer. I mean, she's making jokes. The class is laughing. Just the language, the dialogue is flowing like, it's crisp. Everything is just nice. She makes one mistake. The main character's name was like Greg or George or something like that, or Adam. The main character of her story's name was Adam. But at some point in the story, somebody calls him Greg. And the whole class is like, we're reading it aloud together. We're like, who is Greg? Who's this Greg character? She's like, oh, Greg was my friend. I was talking to him on the phone when I was writing this. I must have accidentally put his name in for Adam, but don't worry, Greg is Adam. Greg is Adam. So I'm like, all right, Greg is Adam. So we just keep moving on. And then towards the end of the story, I began to realize, wait a second, I've seen this episode. So then I stop the class, I go to my computer, and then I Google Dharma and Greg scripts. And it was and basically the first thing that pops up is her script with the names Dharma changed to like Jenny, and Greg is now Adam or whatever. So Jenny and Adam was the title of her story. So I stopped the class from reading it, and then I just tell her, see me after class. So she comes up after class, and I'm like, what do you think, I'm an idiot? What do you think I don't know who Dharma and Greg is? What do you think I don't have 2 teenage daughters who watch Dharma and Greg all night long? And she was like, yeah, I kind of did. All right, so that's essentially what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to tell me about your worst writing experiences. What's the worst thing that happened? Was it the paper that you just procrastinated that you couldn't get through? Was it, you thought you had done really well on it and then it was just garbage, later? Tell me about your worst writing experiences. And then I'll do my best to kind of get rid of some of those fears that you might have with the writing situation. All right, that's it.